What's up, everyone? Aaron Nagler here for PackersNews.com, live on Facebook, late afternoon, early evening on Friday. Not a whole lot of Packers news coming out from the end of the week here, heading into the weekend, but I thought I'd jump on. Seeing as there's no Friday news dump to talk about, just kind of open up the floor and see what's on your minds as you head into your weekends. Hopefully you guys have fun things planned. I'm going to IKEA tomorrow, and not really looking forward to that. So, I'd much rather be here talking Packers with you fine folks. David from Dallas, what's up? Dave, hi, hello, thanks for joining us. Hey Aaron, why did take Gutekunst instead of Elliott? Why'd they take Nick? I probably think two things, probably age and experience. It's pretty simple. He's about 10 years older than Elliott, and he has a bit longer of a track record on both sides of pro personnel and college personnel, meaning the draft. Whereas Elliott came up through pro personnel and had started to make inroads on the draft side, but Gutekunst had kind of made his bones and throughout both sides. Been there since '97. I think Murphy just wanted someone a little older and a little more experienced. Saul, that's a big question. Top 10 defense next year? I mean, let's let free agency and the draft play out before we start talking that. I mean, I know everyone's very excited because of Mike Pettine's press conference, and it sure sounds like the defense is in good hands, but I mean, there are still a lot of deficiencies on that side of the ball and a lot of question marks as well, both with the guys who are set to be free agents and how they're going to fill those holes, and who might make a jump from year one to year two, and who might develop, take a step back, who they're going to draft. So, man, I don't know. That's a big crystal ball you're asking to look into there. If Clay moves back inside next year, where does that put Josh Jones? I still think as a probably a weapon near the line of scrimmage. I don't expect Mike Pettine to be asking Josh Jones to play a whole lot in space. A lot of single high looks there in Pettine's defense, and that would mean Jones could kind of work closer to the line of scrimmage. Remember, it's not going to be the same defense. So if they do kick Clay Matthews inside, that doesn't necessarily mean that Josh Jones doesn't have a place. Now, he's probably still going to have to rotate between strong and free, but I think the opportunity is there for him to play towards the line of scrimmage a lot more, which is where I think his strength lies. Any mutually beneficial trades? Could we lose good enough to get something worthwhile in return? I'm sure they're going to be looking at it. They're going to be talking about it. I would suspect, this is just a hunch, but I would suspect they would try and let free agency play out first before they start looking at it. But you never know. The wheels are always turning. Mark, I like your beard. Thanks. It's coming back. Pettine runs 3-4, but will run 4-3. Depends on the opposing team's offense. James, kind of, yeah. That's it's a little more involved than that. In Buffalo, he actually ran a 4-3 under most of the time. And that was due to personnel. I think a lot of it will depend on what the roster ends up looking like. But that's one of those things where you just have to wait and see how it shapes up. Hello from Davenport. What's up, Scott? How about the Brewers' new pickups? Tyler, I won't, meander too far into Brewers talk because this is PackersNews.com, but I will say the Brewers are going for it. I love it. Love thinking about how this defense reminds me of Badgers' multiple front that Jimmy Leonard runs. Well, Jimmy Leonard came right out of this school, the Rex Ryan, Mike Pettine philosophy. Jimmy Leonard basically followed them around wherever he went as a pro, and that is most certainly the kind of defense he runs there at Wisconsin. So, yeah, I think you're going to see lots of multiple. You're going to see lots of week-to-week game planning, a lot of opponent-specific stuff, which maybe you didn't really see a whole lot of from Capers, but it's early. We'll see how it shakes out. Any chance of a trade down from 14 for more picks? You have to think they'll be open to the possibility. I am very kind of interested to see how Gutekunst ends up running the draft. He's in a really good spot there at 14 with the number of quarterbacks most likely to be taken there in the top 10, and as well as a few other, I think a few offensive linemen that could go there in the top 12. That's going to push a whole lot of talent down to Green Bay there at 14, which may, kickstart them trying to call around and see if they can drop down a few spots and get an extra pick. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. We need a better wide receiver or tight end. Well, they definitely need a better tight end. I posited yesterday on Twitter. I know a lot of the talk here, a lot of the comments I get on Facebook, but also on Twitter, a lot of people asking about Jimmy Graham from Seattle. I got to tell you, I think the Packers would be much better off going after Austin Seferian-Jenkins, who is set to be a free agent. Now, maybe the Jets sign him, and I think they'll probably try to, but to a long-term deal. But Seferian-Jenkins is a guy that they could put in, and he could play all over the formation, do a lot of the stuff they like their tight ends to do, but he wouldn't have to be the guy. He and Lance Kendricks could split that. And, most likely they'll be able to bring back Richard Rodgers. So that's a pretty good trio there. Now, I know people, he's not a speed burner. He's not a speed merchant by any chance, by any stretch of the imagination. And he's not a guy that, has really dominated in the NFL at any one point, much like Jimmy Graham used to. But when you had Drew Brees thrown to him. But I tell you what, he would be a solid pickup, and he wouldn't break the bank. He wouldn't be someone like Jimmy Graham, who will undoubtedly command top dollar despite his advancing age. Any chance Rodgers doesn't come back the same? I doubt it. I guess there's always a long shot that could happen, but those 13 screws you all heard about in his shoulder, in his plate that held his shoulder in place, those were there for a reason. They were there to ensure that the healing, it was like a cast for his shoulder basically. And you saw a bit of a loss of arm strength. It was still coming back on those underthrows in Carolina, but he's the first quarterback to ever do that, to have surgery on his throwing shoulder and then come back in the same year. It's the first time it's ever happened in the history of the NFL. And that was the concern, is that because he'd be coming back so quickly, that he wouldn't still be at full strength. But from everything I've read and from every medical person that we've talked to, he should be fine. He should go into the offseason, have his regular workout routine, and should build the strength back up, no problem. And he should be number one, the Rodgers you all know and love come the start of training camp. Now, there's always a chance something happens. The human body is a tricky thing, but all initial reports are that he should be fine. Bring back Sam Shields. I tend to think that ship has sailed. What's all this nonsense, Green Bay trading out of the 14th pick? Well, someone asked a question. I'm not saying they're going to, but they definitely could. If, a bunch of quarterbacks get taken early and some other players push talent down and there's a whole wide swath of talent to choose from, and they have the same grade on a bunch of different guys, it makes sense to drop down a few spots and get an extra pick and then take one of those guys in a couple spots. Taylor Gabriel, Jay, I think he'd be a great addition. He doesn't really fit the kind of MO of what the Packers have looked for at wide receiver in the past. Now, maybe Gutekunst tears that up and goes in another direction. I think he'd be an excellent addition, but that traditionally hasn't been. Since Ron Wolf came into town back in the early 90s, that has not been the type of wide receiver they look for or covet. They tend to like bigger guys who can work over the middle, who can run November and December at Lambeau Field, big, muscular guys, like D'Angelo Yancey, who has been on their practice squad all last year. He's a guy to watch. I think he could take a big step next year, but I tell you what, I love the idea of adding Gabriel, but I'd be pretty surprised if the Packers went that route. What do you think of King's progress in playing this year? He was a pleasant surprise when it came to tackling the ball carrier, I tell you that. I didn't really see the ferocious hitter we saw in the NFL his rookie year this year. I didn't see that on his college tape. I thought he was a willing tackler, but he seemed to take it up a notch, and that was a big-time pleasant surprise. I think coverage-wise, he took his lumps like every rookie is going to, but I think you saw a lot of promise and a lot of talent. And if you went to PackersNews.com this morning, or you could go right now, Michael Cohen, my colleague, has a piece up where he did talk to Brian Gutekunst about Kevin King, and he said he should be making a full 100% recovery from the shoulder surgery. So I'm sure he's excited to get back at it. Hopefully he can take that leap from year one to year two that is so coveted. Can we get a brief scouting report on LSU wide receiver Chark? Joshua, you can if you go to PackersNews.com. Michael Cohen wrote him up just this morning. If Clay moves inside, is Jake Ryan odd man out? I would tend to think so. Jake's he's a thumper, and he's gonna get in there and stick his nose, and he's gonna do his job, etc. But he's a guy who can get overwhelmed really easily at the point of attack. He can be taken advantage of in coverage, and if you've got to get a guy out of there for Clay, he's probably the one. Remember when people wanted to start Hundley in 2015? Alex, I do remember that. It was kind of funny. When the "What's Wrong with Aaron Rodgers" chorus was as loud as it's ever been, yeah, there were people actually wanting Brett Hundley to start. Not me, by the way. Calvin Ridley at 14. It's a bit rich for my blood, but I know there are people who are on board with that. It wouldn't surprise me if they did it, but I probably wouldn't do it if I was general manager, but thank your lucky stars that I'm not. Let's see. If Fitzpatrick falls in the draft, would the Pack take him with their first pick in the draft, a solid cornerback safety? I think it's a possibility. I don't see him dropping, but it's a possibility. I do think there are one or two teams ahead of the Packers that would probably look at him hard. But, if he did drop to 14, the Packers would seriously have to consider it. What are your thoughts on the XFL starting back up? Justin, I'm all in if they know what a catch is. That's it. That is my 100% take on the XFL. If they can, put on a game and I can sit in a bar drinking a beer and say, that's a catch, and they agree, then boom, I'm in. Give them all my money. Dante Moncrief. Alex, I really like him. I said on Twitter the other day, someone gave me a list of possible free agent acquisitions. And I tell you what, Dante Moncrief checks a lot of boxes. He's a guy that can play on the perimeter. He has speed to spare, and he's been productive. Now, he had a rough year this year. There's no doubt about that, and that's kind of a red flag. But get him a new surroundings, new scenery, and a superstar quarterback, and I think he could do some damage. And he'd add the one thing they really lack, which is pure speed. So, yeah, I think Moncrief is a really good example of the type of guy they should be looking at. Now, they're going to have a whole lot of money invested in wide receiver, even if Jordy Nelson ends up restructuring his contract. So I don't think they're going to be able to, outbid anybody, or they're going to want to outbid anybody, but it's definitely somebody that should be on their radar. Do they keep Richard Rodgers? Well, Sean, right now he's set to be a free agent, but they have a bunch of weeks yet still. They got about a month really to work out some kind of deal if they plan to bring him back. Obviously, the injury there at the end of the year complicates things, but I would tend to think they'll probably allow him to hit free agency and say, look, if you don't like anything you see out there, come on back at our price, and we'd love to have you back. That's how they've operated, the last decade, basically. And I don't see that changing just because Gutekunst is there. Get rid of Kendricks. Should we go after Eagle tight ends? I don't think you get rid of Kendricks. He's signed for 2 more years, and he still can be an asset on the offense. Just because he's not, Gronk doesn't mean he's not worth anything. Richard Rodgers is solid. Mark, I agree. How many linebackers are on the field, and who are linebackers first and 10 week 1 on the opponent's 25? Man, that's a lot of questions. I have no idea. Can we let free agency and the draft happen first? Do we keep Brooks? That's a good question. Yeah, he was effective when he was on the field. Effective is different than productive, though. And then you have the back injury, which really kind of limited him all year long. It's something he's dealt with all his life. It's a condition, but it had never caused him to miss time before. And then this year, it really, the back flared up, and you saw week in and week out he was on the injury report with that back injury. I don't know. I think if they can get him on the cheap, yeah. If they can keep him cheap, yeah, I think they will. But I don't know. We'll see. What about a good backup quarterback, Don? Yeah, we've talked about it a lot here. I definitely think they will bring in some kind of competition for Hundley, whether that's a draft pick or a free agent. I'm not sure, but I don't think you can sit pat after what you saw this year. You got to bring in somebody to push Hundley, to truly push him. Now, obviously, Taysom Hill was doing that at the end of camp last year, but he wasn't pushing him at the start of camp. I mean, Taysom Hill was getting like 1 snap of practice during team stuff at the start of camp. You need to bring in somebody who is getting, snaps enough to push Hundley and to compete with him. At least Kendricks wants to be here. Randy, it's the little things, right? Yeah, he's not Martellus Bennett. Pass rusher or corner with the first-round pick? It really depends who's there. I would go with a pass rusher, all things being equal, but I would have gone with a pass rusher last year, and they didn't. So what are you going to do? Why is our strength and conditioning team still there? Too many injuries last year. I hate to break it to you, but the majority, not all, but the majority of NFL injuries have nothing to do with the strength and conditioning group that the team employs. A lot of times it comes down to two things, luck and the athlete himself. If you want a better kind of first-hand take on it, listen to Brady Papinga on AJ Hawk's podcast a couple weeks ago. He did a great job of laying it down and saying why fans, calling for strength and conditioning coaches to be fired need to stand down, because 9 times out of 10, the hamstring injuries that you see, things of that nature, that is much more about what the players are doing away from the facility and during the offseason than it is anything having to do with the guys on the strength and conditioning staff. And then those, obviously the soft tissue injuries that we've seen. On the flip side of it, Jason Spriggs has a dislocated kneecap. No strength and conditioning coach could have prevented that. No strength and conditioning coach can ensure that Brian Balaga's ACL doesn't tear. So, the strength and conditioning thing, man, it wears me down sometimes. Running back Mays' future. Devontae Mays, I think they'll bring him back into camp next year and give him a clean slate and let him get to it. Obviously, those 2 fumbles, his first 2 touches, that's not how you want to start your NFL career. And pretty much put him in the doghouse for the rest of the season for the most part. But, yeah, we'll see. I tend to think, like I said, they'll bring him back. They'll let him have his reps there, and hopefully he shakes that off and gets in the mix, so to speak. Because I think he is the strongest, most violent runner of the group. He was fun to watch in camp. He laid some licks on some guys. But if you can't hold on to the football, it's not going to matter at all. Is Vince Biegel a bust? No. I'm going to give that a full jowl shake no. Vince Biegel missed everything. Vince Biegel got hurt the very first day of rookie camp. That's the very first time he touched the field as a pro. He got hurt, and then he was out basically until week 8 of the regular season. I can't even express how much he missed as far as installation, drill work, scheme work, everything on the field, any padded work. He didn't put pads on until like week 7. It was his first year in the NFL. It was a total redshirt year. Nothing Vince Biegel did this year means anything. Let him come back. Let him get this offseason under his belt. Let him, have a full offseason actually participating. And then we'll see what he is in the summer and into the fall. But right now, Vince Biegel is an incomplete. He is nowhere near a bust. Should we play wide receiver Clark more? He has good size. Jordan, he does. He's a tantalizing prospect. There's no doubt about it. And I tell you what, it's no exaggeration when I say every single day of training camp, he made an insane athletic catch that made everyone go, whoa. I mean, every day. I can't stress it enough. Every single day, he made some kind of catch along the sideline, back of the end zone, whatever, that made everyone kind of look up and go, who is that? Every day he did it. So the athletic ability, 100%, absolutely makes you kind of open your eyes and go, this guy's got something. The problem is there's a lot more to playing wide receiver in the NFL than just jumping up and catching the football. There's adjustments, there's reading, coverages, there's pre-snap, post-snap, all that stuff, blocking on running plays, and in all those kind of finite areas, he's really struggling. Now he's a rookie and he played, he's coming. It's a big adjustment to the NFL from the small school. It's really up to him how much work he wants to put in, and if he can make that jump from year 1 to year 2, then yeah, I think he has an opportunity to play some more. But it's the and then again, all those things, doing all those amazing catches in practice, that's great, and that's one thing. But you saw that game in Minnesota. He has a touchdown there. It's a perfect back shoulder throw from Brett Hundley. All he's got to do is put his hands around the ball, and he completely mistimes it. under the lights in the cold. That's real football. This isn't practice in the summer when everyone's comfy. Maybe a little hot, but, this is a freezing cold, division rival. You're right there in the end zone, bright lights, national television, and you miss it. Got to make those plays if you want to stick. You got to make those plays if you want the coaches to trust you and put you out there when it matters. Because it didn't matter in that instance, as far as, their season was already over, but that was your opportunity to shine, and you blew it. What's De Niro say when he talks to Stallone in Copland? I gave you a chance to be a wide receiver, and you blew it! You got to make those catches. Jennifer, thank you for joining us. Give up a second for Earl Thomas? Whoo! No. That guy's at the end of his career. Now, I think he's an amazing player. And I do absolutely think he'd help the Packers defense. But a second-round pick, man, that's awfully rich for a guy who's nearing the end. Who makes the big second-year jump? Bob, that's a good question. I'll probably go with Vince Biegel just because he gave us so little his rookie year. I do think, Kevin King could make a big jump, and he played pretty well already. Another guy they got to get something out of is Montravius Adams. But it's hard not, he's obviously got to make a jump because he didn't do anything this year. So, I think those are probably your prime candidates. But another guy that I think everyone needs to look out for and remember, the guy I talked about a little bit ago is D'Angelo Yancey, the wide receiver from Purdue, who was on the practice squad all year. And I know everyone was all about Michael Clark, but don't sleep on Yancey. That kid's got talent, and he was really showing something towards the end of camp. Why does everyone hate on Randall? 10 picks, 3 years, 32. Oh, Demarius Randall. I think the kid played lights out football the second half of the season. If you go back and watch the tape of the Tampa game, that's probably the best he's played as a pro. I'm with you. I think he's going to form a really solid start to help form a really solid secondary in Green Bay next year. Big part of it is who they're going to pair with King on the outside, but I think Randall in the slot, and even just bouncing him around, he was playing really, really well down the stretch. And if he can come back, that's a big if, because part of the gig is you got to show some consistency. But if he can come back and play at the level, pick up right at the playing at the level he was playing down the stretch there last year, they got something there. All right. What's going on with Rollins? Peter, he had the Achilles injury in Minnesota, and he's rehabbing. I haven't heard anything as far as how that's going. Usually they'll keep that under lock and key, and they won't tell us much. We'll probably get some kind of update either at the Combine, that's a long shot, but more likely when they begin their off-season program in April. We'll probably get a better feel for how he's doing. All right, everybody. Thanks so much for joining me. I'm sorry if I didn't get to your question. There's a ton of them, and that's always a testament to you guys and how insane you are about your Packers, and it's amazing. And I thank you so much for making myself and PackersNews.com part of your Packers routine. Make sure you're checking PackersNews.com for all the latest. We'll have everything about the team if and when it happens. In the meantime, hope you all have a great weekend, and I'll talk to you on Monday. Thanks a lot, everyone.